the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening to Talking Catholic. This is your long-lost co-host, Mary McCusker. Mike just reminded me that I haven't co-hosted an episode in like 2.5 months, so It's great to be back.
I genuinely can't remember the last time you were on, and you've hosted a lot of the shows with me, but can you remember what the last one was?
No, I don't, but I know that since the wonderful Jennifer Morrow has joined, she's been doing a lot of great podcasts lately.
She has, and it's you and I work in different buildings, so oftentimes I can't just grab you and bring you into a podcast. Sadly, Jen does not have that benefit of distance, so she's literally one floor away from me, and sometimes
into it.
Those last minute podcast ideas come up, and I literally grab her and bring her over, but she's always very kind to join us, and she says she likes it. So
she's a natural. She's really, really great.
You know what? She really is. I have to give her a lot of credit. Certainly not to her face, but behind her back. I have to say her episodes are really good, and she's been bringing on good ideas for guests, and it's been nice because it has actually been. I'm not entirely certain why, but between yourself and Carrie and Marianella, you've all been so busy of late. No, in a good way. You've all been so busy of late that I actually feel like the podcast has become a burden for the three of you. So it has been nice to have, not really a burden, but I'm happy that Jen's been there to pick up some of those weeks.
And Jen's might just be the busiest of all of us, though. We're all busy. No excuse. But I've missed it.
No excuse.
I've missed it.
No excuses at all. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers either. It thrills me, actually, that the three of you are as busy as you are. Mary and sadly, you were knocked out by COVID a year ago.
Most of the day.
Marianella and her family contracted it over the holidays, so she's been laid up. Carrie, I think, has been able to bypass it. My family, to our knowledge, hasn't had it, but the new variant is so mild. Who knows? We might have had it and never have known.
I know.
So anyway.
Cheers to staying safe, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's no round 2.
Or 3 or 4 or anything else like that. But it's, so anyway, it's the start of the new year, and we have lots of hurdles to jump, and you and I in particular tend to be very busy. So it has been one of those weeks too. I will tell you right now, to our listeners, if you're listening and I sound tired, that is because I am tired.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, that one was self-inflicted. It has been a very busy week, and I decided to treat myself to binge watching some shows last night, and stayed up far too late watching some stuff on Netflix, which I am paying the price for later this Friday afternoon.
That's okay, because our guest today is possibly the most energetic and like contagiously energetic person I know.
Yeah,
has that. I don't know what the word is for it, but
yeah, I don't know how to describe it.
Invigorating.
Either. She is invigorating and invigorated. She's been on the podcast before. It's actually kind of a bittersweet podcast today, because we're thinking of this as sort of her exit interview. She's done great work for Catholic Charities for years, and we've had her on the podcast. She's one of my few solo guests where it was just me and her once.
She could be by herself and just run the whole thing.
Well, she could today, because you and we may actually fall asleep because you're exhausted too. But she's been fantastic, and I'm genuinely saddened that on the one hand that she's leaving, but I'm also thrilled because she's leaving for a great opportunity elsewhere. But can you introduce our new guest, our current guest?
Try to get through the podcast without getting teary-eyed.
Baby girl.
Welcome to Cristina Chillem. I don't know if I should be introducing you by today's your last day. Can you tell us your new role and the million roles you've had over the years here at Catholic Charities?
Yes. I'm beaming and laughing over here, listeners, during this intro. This is awesome. They could totally fall asleep. I'll just take it away.
Thank you, Cristina.
Nap time.
Yeah. No, I'll start with this story of how I came to Catholic Charities, and it is a great story, and that'll lead into the roles that I've had.
Sure.
So I graduated with a master's in English, and I had originally anticipated pursuing academia and scholarship, PhD, but I just felt like this change in my attention and like my interest, and I wanted to try different kinds of writing. So for about a summer after graduating in that spring, I tried like a little bit of copywriting, like looking into copywriting, marketing, or creative writing and poetry. Like I've always been interested in all. Well, I like came across the grant writing genre. I came across a position that someone was hiring for a grant writer, and I was like, what is this grant writer, right? What's a grant? And I've just fell in love. I've been hooked ever since on grant writing, which is crazy, but
I don't know if I've ever heard that sentence come out of anyone's mouth ever.
People have laughed at me.
I've been doing this job for 20 some odd years, and the grant writer was always the hardest one to fill and the easiest one to lose, because it can be a grind. Because if you've never written a grant in your life, there are usually mountains of paperwork, mountains of questions to ask, a lot of it in the minutia, so you have to go digging and researching. It is a actual skill position that most people don't have,
and all the while knowing that you might not even be awarded the grant after months and months of however well. Can we talk about that?
What goes into the context of, like, I'm saying I like the genre of the grant, the writing, you know, like I really fell in love with the way this packet is structured in such a way that it brings an idea, a vision up, and it's you articulate it all in writing in a very organized and argumentative way, because you want it to be enticing and competitive to like stand out and to win the award. And so there's like an argumentative nature there, and you're really talking up why you believe in this idea, and then ultimately like what you write, how you plan it all out, right? It's like a blueprint for this program or this service. Then that becomes reality if it's awarded. Like, so it's actually brings, you know, an idea or your vision into reality. And I love that form. I don't love the pressure, of course. I'm not a superhuman, like, you know, I don't love the pressure. I don't love when we're not awarded, you know, but I do really like the activity of the writing form. And so I wanted to gain more I applied for that position, and in that interview I realized I'm not ready for this kind of work. Like there was a lot to learn. So I found like a weekend program. I tried to learn, and I tried to apply for other grant writing positions, and just realized I needed more experience. Well, around that time, your position was being advertised. Mary's position for marketing media coordinator was open, and I applied, and I so I interviewed, and in that interview too, it was kind of clear, like, no, not really right fit for this, but Kevin, can I say him Kevin or Mr. Hagee? I call him Kevin. So I don't know. So Kevin,
our executive director,
our executive director at Catholic Charities. I was in the interview with Mike and him, Kevin, and he had called me after the interview and said, you weren't the best fit for the position, he said, but call me, like, reach out anytime, you know, like if you for something else, you know. He just like, it was a good interview. I don't, you know, so then I was at a diocesan young adult event. And do you remember Camille Fuentes? Was she ever on? I don't know if she was on the show before.
We did, yeah. We had her on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she was on.
She was in that diocesan event, and I was introducing myself because it was the first time I came out, and I said, I'm interested in grant writing. And she said, oh, well, Catholic Charities used to have a grant writing intern. I thought, oh, well, maybe I could get experience and learn. So I called Kevin and I said, hey, I just heard that you used to have an intern. I was like, could I have that intern position, or like, you know, and he's like, well, it's not really like a position. If you want to volunteer, we'll just ask. The grant writer at the time was John Marcantuno, whose legacy here is, with all the funding and support that he's brought in, it made him the most amazing mentor to learn under. To work under him, I've learned from the absolute best. And we had to ask him, do you want to take on this? And we made a really fun, he ultimately said yes, but we made the funniest pair, because I'm like this young, inexperienced, like ambitious, idealistic, my energy, like you said, I'm like this new puppy that he has to like, how
do we describe John? Like, just very calm, like, even tempered.
So polar opposites.
Dynamic duo, polar opposites. opposites in the funniest way imaginable, but the best way, right? Like,
yes, he's very composed. He's very, very focused, and he's slow because he doesn't want to make a mistake, and he's so careful, and he's careful when he talks, and like so. Exactly, like he's experienced, he knows, right? So we made a funny pair. He had to tell me to listen so many times, just like listen, stop, not listen. But I learned from the best, and so I volunteered from November of 2016 to April of 2017 when I was hired on, and I wrote so many grants with him. I started, even as a volunteer, I was experiencing like the late night deadlines, and I was like, we got to get this in. But it was it was the realest experience. Dive into it, the whole context. Right. And so it was just so cool. Yeah, that was my start.
And I have to clarify a couple things you said, or add on to a couple things you said. Number one, I was in those interviews with her, and now famously, Mary had a very combative first interview with us.
I'd say traumatic on my end.
Yes, it was. It was Kevin and I must have been in a mood that day, and we were arguing with each other throughout her interview.
Wow!
It was very
like
peculiar.
Slowly backing away in my chair the whole time, like, oh gosh.
There were only 2 interviews of. I think we had. I want to say we had 5 interviews. There were only 2 interviews that were of note, and they were each of you, and they were of note for this particular reason. Kevin genuinely, and I say this in a nice way, was not even a little bit enthusiastic about doing these interviews because, it was my field, and, marketing people are the worst people in the world. So in each of them, for about the first half hour, he could not have been less. He was visually unenthusiastic.
Yes, that much was abundantly clear.
Right. But in both of your cases, about a half an hour into it, and I don't know, I couldn't tell you when the moment was, about a half an hour into it, or halfway through each of them, I saw him get up, sit up, and lean forward. And when he sat up and leaned forward, I realized his body composure completely changed. Suddenly he was interested because each of you said something of interest to him that suggested something different than the job we were hiring for, which was basically you had whatever that natural or that innate appreciation for social justice and Matthew 25, and that was when he got interested. That's when he got interested in her. That's when he got interested in
Christine
you.
and I are exchanging looks right now, like, what wacky thing did we say?
And the thing is because I was only interested, and this may have been why the interviews went the way they did, I was only interested in what a person's experience was. I was not particularly interested in their soul. And so it actually went, I will tell you that there were 3 people considered. The first one was purely my choice, a soulless marketer who was in my mind was the perfect person for the job. The second one was the person who had a little bit of experience, but apparently, which I didn't pick up on the time, had a lot of soul. And then the third person was a person who had a lot of soul and no experience. And that person was Cristina.
I was sitting here like, wait, which one is who?
You're the middle one. So the thing about Cristina was, so I was not.
So I was the one with no soul, is what you're saying?
No, you
had a little bit of soul.
All right, a little bit. I'll take it.
And like enough experience.
So the first choice,
a mediocre choice at best.
we offered the job to the first choice, and she ultimately decided to turn us down. Which, in this field, we rely a lot on the Holy Spirit, which we will assume that the Holy Spirit had something to do with that. She had found a better job somewhere else, more lucrative, decided not to take that job. So then Kevin offered it to Mary, and thankfully she accepted the job. And had she not accepted the job, Cristina very likely would have gotten a phone call. But
here we are 5 years later.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that Kevin doesn't forget these things. When he sees a person of quality, he notices it. He tells the person that they are of quality, like he did with you, and then encourages them, if they see something else of interest, to let him know. And he's great. He's great. Yes. He has an ability for that I simply do not possess. And I think, to your credit, Cristina, you followed up, and a lot of people don't do that. He will make that. He will tell people that, and then never hear from them again. So my message to our listeners is, if you want a job in an organization and that organization has told you that they see something in you, but there isn't a fit right now, stay in contact. not every week, not every 2 weeks even, but every couple of months, if you see something, keep an eye on their jobs and stuff like that. Because I've now been a professional for 30 some odd years. And the one thing I'm certain of is the quality of the place you work at will always supersede the quality of your job and how much money you're making. I would much rather, having sold my soul a few times for more money and more title, I have realized that being in a good place is far more important. And if it's in your nature to be in a place where you can do better, do more for the world, then that's the place you really want to be at. Yeah. So you two are shining examples of Kevin's witness and wisdom in his hiring practices. So congratulations to both of you. And we can see that, in your case, and we haven't even got to this point yet, and we'll talk about it in a second, but you are leaving us, but you're leaving us for much greener pastures. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit more. So you finally get in the door and you're doing grant writing. But you don't stay just doing grant writing, do you?
No, and to follow up, that's a little bit about thanks to Kevin's strength of seeing that and kind of his genuine care that he has always been attuned to what my interests are and my skills and talents and gifts as I've developed and learned and grown. And so throughout my experience here, I've gotten, we could say I've gotten, thrown into a variety of things but it's also just I got to try a variety of things. I got to get all these different perspectives and experiences and try all these different things. So from being the grants assistant kind of at the start of when I was hired, several months later Camille's position opened because she moved out to California with her sister. So this was the program coordinator for the Salem Health and Wellness Program. And this has always been a unique program and really fun, especially from a grant writing perspective, because the funder is the Salem Health and Wellness Foundation, and they're based in Salem, and their priority is obviously Salem County. The foundation was formed when the Salem Memorial Hospital was sold to a for-profit company. There were public funds that the county, the residents, they belonged to them for their well-being, and so they created the foundation to manage those funds. And so the Salem Health and Wellness Foundation reached out to Catholic Charities and said, hey, we see that you're here and you're doing work. Can we help support you? And what kind of program could we support? And from that, we built the Salem Health and Wellness Program, which involved nutrition education demonstrations in the food pantries. We formed a food pantry coalition for the county. We helped increase produce in the pantries across the county. And so I took over that role and really dived in. And that was, my first experience in Salem County too.
And I'm sure you can speak to this more than I can, but that's needed in Salem County, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how it's maybe different than Camden when it comes to the whole food insecurity front?
Sure, yes. Salem County is much more rural than than Camden County. I mean, when I drive home from here, right, I'm passing Wegmans, then Whole Foods, and then Trader Joe's, but very rural, and so there. And also, their economic vitality has depleted ever since what's the industrial era, like the Snapple. There used to be the glass factory, and Snapple used to make all their bottled glass there. That came out. The port used to be very busy, not busy anymore. So just struggling to have this economic vitality, and so food insecurity comes with that, right? And so and they also have the they've always struggled with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has always done a county health rankings each year, and Salem has the poorest health ratings of high obesity, of chronic diseases, of poor physical environment or poor food index, being able to access healthy foods. So that's why the Health and Wellness Foundation wanted to boost support in that area. Yeah.
And you did a ton of different roles. I mean, I remember being there one day and you're lifting boxes, stacking things in the food pantry, all the while dealing with clients coming in, answering the phone. I mean, that was like a mixed bag of responsibilities, wasn't
The
it?
physical part was the funniest. It must have been so funny to watch. I'm like, I learned very, very early on. Like at first I tried doing this in slacks and my heel boots, because this is our work attire, right? But I'm literally like moving a half a pallet worth of 50-pound bags of potatoes or onions, off of a pallet into the van or down the steps into the basement of a food pantry. And I learned early on, I was like, I have to make myself like a mobile uniform. So I went to Kohl's. I got like men's khakis, work khakis. I got like a vest that like looked like decent, and I called it my mobile uniform. Yeah, but yeah, it was very physical. The one of the most memorable adventures. I'll be proud of myself for this. But I learned that the community food bank in Egg Harbor Township offered produce any day for pickup for free and because it was donated through a particular medium, it didn't require signatures when you handed it out. Any agency partner could pick it up and distribute it. So I was like, wow, well, this is how we can increase produce in the pantries. Yeah. But like what that required, I would get to this Catholic Charities Camden, we're in the Camden office, we're not in the vault. And at 6 a.m. I'd get here to hop in the old Mater Dei van. And I'd get in that van, and every day I'd be like, I can't believe they're letting me drive this. Starving. And I'd drive down to Egg Harbor Township, and I would get to the food bank, and then I'd load up the van with like, it could probably fit about 2 pallets worth of stuff. And people would always help me because I was like by myself. And then I drive to Salem from there, and I'd stop at pantries along the way, all the way back up to Camden, and I'd deliver the produce. Wow. Now, I did this for probably 6 months. It wasn't sustainable, and I only did this once a month because the other weeks of the month the community food bank was able to deliver to our Penns Grove office, and then all the coalition members would come and pick up what they could for their pantries, and so it was much more feasible. Yeah. But the second Thursday of every month they couldn't do it, and pantries had distributions on the second Saturday, and I wanted them to have the produce. so I did this, and it was, I mean, what a cool adventure. I'd be out on the road, and everything. So it was fun, but it wasn't sustainable in that way, but good adventure. So yes, it was a whole new role, right? A whole new activity.
I was just thinking, like, it's different from grant writing, but at the same time, I feel like you've always had the ability to just like come up with these ideas. Like, you're an ideas person, and and you're innovative. And I feel like with grant writing or running things in Salem, like, that is just such a good skill to have, like just being adaptable and coming up with new ideas. I know you've come to me with a million amazing ideas, and I mean, I feel like that's always been a really great
Have you always
quality.
been very creative?
I think so.
Oh yeah,
okay. I think so. Yeah. I was reflecting on just on the past 2 weeks. I've been reflecting on, so I thought of this. Have you ever played the game Rummy Cube?
I don't think so.
It's a tile game. So everyone has several tiles, and the tiles range from, there's several sets, and they range from 1 to 13, and they're in different colors. Kind of like Rummy, the card game, but and you put down one, sequences or the, several nines of all different colors. And once everyone starts putting down tiles in front of them, you can mix and match other people's tiles to be able to get rid of your own, and you have to get rid of your own. And I thought that's how my brain works. I'm always looking at the pieces. Yeah. Oh, there's this resource over here, and then there's this business, and there's this need, but clients want things this way. How do we put this together? Yeah.
Which happens to be, going back to our listeners, and if you've ever wondered what the benefit of working for a nonprofit is, there's usually not enough people to do twice the amount of work that you would ordinarily need if you had a full staff, which requires you to have creative people on board, and gives them the opportunity that you ordinarily wouldn't find anywhere else. Like if you work for a big corporation, there's a high likelihood you're going to do the same thing every day for 10 years until you get a promotion to do something else. But it's going to be the same thing every day for 10 years. You work for a nonprofit like this, you're going to be able to do what not whatever you want, but you're going to be able to do things that you never realized you were going to be able to do because A, there's a need, and B, you've shown that you have some sort of skill set for that. Or if you don't have the current skill set, you're about to learn what that skill set is. So you ended up, I mean, if we want to talk about Catholic Charities for a little bit, can you, prior to coming here, did you envision like where you would kind of end up? Like, was it something like this?
No.
I know you had talked about academia in the beginning, but
no, I didn't.
I don't think most people think of
really clear.
social services as a place they plan to right out. I mean, some people do, but
No, I certainly hadn't really thought social services. All during college, I was really like, just I'm writing, you know. And then here, there's so much that, I mean, real life. You get to touch so much of real life. I was especially excited to come on the podcast and talk about my time here because, as you're saying to any listeners who are, creative or young or looking for an experience, right? You guys ran some interviews with colleagues here talking about their time, and it was a time when we were hiring for positions. And I thought they should totally be asking me because I could talk this up so much because of that exact reason that like you're just I think here, like you said, there's just opportunity to try things. You come say, I'm really interested in this, and like, what can I do? What can we do with that? And so I'm a living proof of that. And then being at a multi-service social service agency, a multi-service nonprofit, the wide range that I've gotten to see and learn about, all of it has prepped me for this position that I'm taking now. So it's really grateful, really rich soil, really rich, nurturing soil to grow in. And I was a little older than you when I went to my first social service organization. But the same thing happened to me. We've talked about it to Mr. Hickey's chagrin all the time. I started my life with Volunteers of America, Delaware Valley, and Collingswood. We took care of the South Jersey area and a little bit of Philadelphia.
You got to throw that in there every time.
Only because I know it annoys Kevin. But it was the same deal. I started as a marketing person, but because it was it wasn't a super small outfit, but it was a small outfit with a small marketing team. I ended up having to learn a dozen things that I never would have learned if I had joined a public relations firm or had gone to some big corporate entity, which I did later in life when I sold my soul for money. But the greatest joys of my life have been working for VOA and then working with the Diocese of Camden and the time I've worked with Catholic Charities, because there is so much, not so much flexibility because you work constantly, but flexibility of job where no 2 days are ever the same. Which is and you do if you have a boss like Kevin Hickey and all of the program directors around here, they're always looking to bring in a talented person to even if it's just a short-term help out on a project, you will get sometimes volunteered and sometimes voluntold to work on something that is definitely not in your purview, but you have a skill set and you're asked to work on it. So you end up learning all these new things, I will tell you, in the world, it is very rare to go from grant writing to running a Catholic Charities office out of depressed Salem County. And that's the other thing, going back to talk about Salem County, which we've also talked on this podcast before. I have a particular affinity for because I was born in Elmer and I spent a lot of my time in Salem County. My wife worked in Salem County for 15 years. Salem City itself is this city hub that was a port town and a manufacturing town, which only has one major manufacturer left in it, which is where my wife worked, and surrounded on all sides by food, whether it's the fish in the bay or all the farmlands around it. And yet it is one of the most food insecure areas of New Jersey, not just South Jersey, New Jersey, just because there's not a lot of entities down there. This has recently come up in South Jersey news most recently, but there's been an influx of Dollar Generals in South Jersey, which are fine for finding low-priced goods, but oftentimes people will utilize them for their main food source instead of going grocery shopping because there are just not that many grocery stores in Salem County. You have Walmart. You have, I think, one Walmart in the entire county.
It's considered a food desert, isn't it?
It is. It's considered a food desert. And so offices like yours, when you were running that office as of, it's like 2 hours from now.
After 4 o'clock today.
Yeah. Those are a boon. And you and I talked about this many times, was the fact that you were able to offer fresh food in your, out of your offices was something that just people in Salem didn't always have the opportunity to get. So they could get processed food all over the place cheaply, which is why you would end up having health issues.
Right.
So,
and with food, people, that was always a great way that people came to us. And then after talking to people like Cristina, you learn, they have more needs than just food, and we might be able to help out with that. So it's a good way of drawing people in, I think, too.
Yep. The food pantries or access points are a great way to connect with clients when you have things to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cristina, this is like probably, I don't know. It's either a really hard question or a really easy one, but can you tell us like your biggest takeaways or lessons learned from, we could probably have a series of podcasts about that.
You know what else I learned here that was really critical was just it was my first real workplace experience. Like I said, I had gone straight into my master's degree from my bachelor's degree, and through college I worked at restaurants mainly was how and then so that's like a different kind of workplace atmosphere right now, and then so I started here, and so I just learned I learned about listening. I learned about not being the first person to talk all the time.
As Mike looks at me,
which for someone of your energy, I know can be difficult.
It
sometimes.
is. I'm always bursting to get in there, but no, it's important to listen, and I'm certainly taking that with me. Just even having not getting frustrated or flustered when you get inundated with things that you didn't expect during the day. Our program directors here are the most magnificent models for that.
They are
constantly, there's fires kind of around all the time, and they're just so composed and so skillful and smart, and their calm and collectedness just makes you feel like it's okay, and that's just such a great skill to have. So receiving those things with a poise and a gladness to be of service, so that skill.
At the same time, being able to run around with your hair on fire because there's so many things to do is also a skill as well. But being able to do it in a composed manner is not something that you will necessarily learn everywhere.
Yeah.
This job has a way of separating. I refer to make it a foxhole reference. The people you want in the foxhole with you and the people you don't want in the foxhole with you, because stuff is coming at you 10 times every hour, and the people who can keep their heads together, those are the people you want to be working with when stuff really gets dangerous.
And all the while, keeping the mission of Catholic Charities in the back of your head, all the time. And I've always said with you, Cristina, even when you start meetings with opening prayers or closing prayers, I know you've gotten put on the spot for that a ton of times, but then you just come out with this beautiful reflection or prayer that's just reminds everyone take a step back, remember why we're here, what we're doing, and why we're called to do it. And so you've always been so true to the mission and always reminded everyone else of the same.
That's a good question. Has your faith been tested here, or has it grown here?
I think my faith has certainly, I think my faith is always growing. Well, of course, testing is growing, right?
Sure. Depending on whether you pass the test or not. Sure.
This is part of that, but that sense of composure, just keeping the love for service and your feelings, that not letting your feelings get the best of you, whether you're frustrated or stressed or whatever, because we're also interacting with clients, and we exist here for them, and so you don't want to effuse any negativity on in your interactions with them. You want to receive them with kind and ready hands, and so I think that's certainly part of faith, is just really getting better at the being at the ready to receive people with that, like just kind of like emotional control.
Yeah.
You know, but out of faith, because I want to be I want to receive people like Christ would, with that warmth and that compassion, and that, you know, I don't want to make anyone feel like a burden ever, you know. But then sometimes an expression or a facial, you know, a vocal expression or could do that, and I'm not perfect. So, and I, you know, have had to learn to really develop that skill, and that's to be a better instrument of Christ and representative of Him, and a disciple of Him and servant in that way.
It's no small thing, and I will tell you right now, it's something I fail at all the time. Mary has been in the room when my lack of Christian charity rears its ugly head. Well,
not
you've
towards
been in the room
clients.
when I've done...
It's okay to, you know.
Oh,
I mean, you have to talk to people
I
for support,
I would never do anything to a client. But
that's the difference, though.
our fellow staff members occasionally have maybe heard my lack of
less
Christian
than
charity.
charitable.
Yeah, which I'm thankful that my colleagues from time to time will call me on a carpet for and say, you know, Mike, you probably could have handled that a little bit better. And I appreciate that they exist and remind me, because even at my advanced age, I can learn and grow. So you never stop learning and growing when you're working for an institution like this, because there's always better people sitting around the table.
Well, Mike, you are too self-deprecating, but
I can
anyway.
always do
There's a great quote by St. Vincent de Paul, and the last line of it, he says that, like, the worse anyone in need sneers at you or treats you, like, the more you serve them with love. He said, it is only for your love that the poor will accept the bread that you give them. And so he's kind of talking about, I mean, to have something to give is a seat of privilege. And so to do it without love is, I mean, that's not charity. And so it's really what you're giving them is the love. It's not just it's not even that they just need the bread. They need your love too. Everybody needs that exchange of acceptance and care. You know, everybody needs care. So, I
feel like that comes in many forms. Like, I've seen you, like, quite literally handing out things to people with a smile. I've seen hundreds of faces over the years.
Oh, you're
light
so
up.
good at that too, Mary.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I'm the one taking the pictures and writing the stories, and I swear it's always been so easy to photograph Cristina and just the smiles of people, whether it's you handing out food, but also even with grant writing. I mean, I feel like that might be an underappreciated thing for people who aren't too familiar of what goes into it, because that earns the money that allows us to carry out services and goes towards clients. And on one hand, I feel like that's even harder because you don't really see, you know, the fruits of your labor.
Which is why, going back to what I was saying earlier, the technical aspects of our work are actually very important, which is why I tend to err on the side of getting someone who really knows what they're doing.
But you can do that with love, even the technical stuff.
And actually,
which Cristina does.
Just to go back to, you know, Cristina was quoting St. Vincent de Paul recently. And quoting him eloquently, which begged a very important question. Why are we letting her leave? She's very, very
Mike,
good.
I'm trying to get through this without crying, okay?
Because
don't lead me there.
When I will tell you, in a moment of also unchristian, a lack of Christianness, so I get the email that, Cristina, you're leaving. And I went on at least a 5-minute rant about your departure and how I was very unhappy about it, and told anybody in my office, may have used one or two colorful words to really manifest my point. So I, for one, am going to, because I have and continue to have, because I don't let anyone go away, big plans for you, because you are a talent. We've certainly talked about things in the past that we wanted to do with you that simply because our jobs are so busy never came to fruition, which I take a great deal of credit for making sure that I screwed up and not put you in front of people the best way we could. So I will tell you right now, I am deeply saddened that you're leaving. Mildly offended. Not really. No, actually, to tell you the truth, I am extremely sad that you're leaving Catholic Charities, but I do it very pridefully because you're moving on to a leadership position elsewhere, which personally I think is one of the greatest compliments you can give Catholic Charities is to lose a person who is then going into a leadership position elsewhere. So we've talked about it a little bit and sort of alluded to it. Where are you going and what is your title?
Thank you for that. I'm going to be the executive director of the Salem County Interagency Council of Human Services.
And what do they do?
Sure.
That's a lot of words.
Their mission statement is quite broad, and I'm not quoting it exactly. I haven't learned it yet. I can recite, established in 1936 for a multi-service social service mission that it empowers, advocates for, and provides services to the poor, vulnerable, and marginalized.
Look at you.
Across the 6 southern counties of New Jersey. 6 southernmost counties of New Jersey.
It took you a little while to learn that one. Yeah.
I'll get there.
You'll get there.
So their mission is very broadly to plan, coordinate, collaborate, develop, and implement programs and services that will better the well-being of the residents of Salem County and surrounding areas. Mm-hmm. So I actually found it very interesting when I read that. I said I can do a lot with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now all the ideas you have all the time that can,
and you're the executive director, so you can
force people to do it.
It's nice to have power.
Yeah, we'll see what I can play with. I'm excited to see what I can build and what we can do. But they were founded for specific reasons besides that mission statement, and that was to provide coordinated care assessment for all providers regarding homelessness in the county. They work closely for the county in that area, and then also some child welfare coordinated services. We help to monitor certain school-based programs for families and youth, and so I think that I'm still going to learn all the ins and outs, but we help to communicate any new regulations and strategic priorities and make sure that these programs, homelessness services, are all fulfilling what is expected, and also helping we convene providers and people and residences to make sure they're all in communication and know what's going on, no one's isolated, and you can share resources and stuff. So those are their main activities at this time until I add more.
That's the way you want to think. And it is true. It's like when you get a position like this where you have some influence, it's a great opportunity, and you'll be having that influence with with everything you've learned here. And certainly we've dealt with a lot of nutty situations, which I will no doubt believe will serve you well in your new role. So genuinely, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very excited for you.
So this is what's cool about it too. Like Catholic Charities actually fulfills some homelessness contracts with housing. So I'll still be working with Cindy LeBron, and also I was the Catholic Charities representative on a New Jersey Health Initiatives project. And now I'm going to bring the IAC on to that, and I'll be the lead on that. But Mary is going to step in as the Catholic, so we'll get as the Catholic Charities representative on that project. That's just a community collaborative grant project, and so we'll be working together there.
Community partners.
I'm still going to be, kind of in the network, and how can we build each other up, and still collaborate.
If there's one thing I've learned,
my wheels are turning.
you can physically leave Catholic Charities, but nobody really leaves Catholic Charities.
But I don't want to.
No,
it's people.
Yeah.
And listen, we find work for, and I don't mean that in terms of like employment or stuff like that, but volunteer work or committees to have people sit on their former employees of Catholic Charities, simply because anybody who leaves here, and I recommend this to anybody who's looking to pilfer good candidates, by all means, check your local Catholic Charities, because they are well instructed, knowledgeable, calm, good-hearted, and very creative. I haven't met a single person here that doesn't fall some level and some degree of those things. So if you, by all means, please do not take from Catholic Charities Diocese of Camden, because we already lost one, and we need some time to replenish, and she's going to be hard to replace. But look at your other Catholic Charities entities, because they will be beneficial. But we will be having you back from time to time, certainly as a guest.
Yes.
I mean, once you're a
that.
guest on the podcast, we'll bring you back at the drop of a hat for certain things. So when you have stuff going on in Salem County that you want to get the news out for,
Yes.
you know who to contact.
Excellent.
We'll always work with you.
I'm trying to think of how to word this question, because I know you are a very, very humble person, but you've had a lot of accomplishments. Like, the grants that you've received. The other day, I heard somebody screaming. I'm like, oh gosh, what's happening now? And I run out, and it was a colleague who was saying, Cristina got us this grant. We have funding for this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it was, everyone kind of rushed over to see what was going on. And I'm like, usually nobody hears about it, but you've brought in a ton of money. I mean, you've started so many initiatives, so many ideas. I know you're humble, but can you tell us more about just the work that you've done?
I keep an Excel sheet of all the grants that I put out so that I can track how many dollars I've actually put out requests for, and then how many I'm awarded, and so I can track a percentage rate of my success rate, I track whether those were government or private foundations, and what the opportunity title was. So it's not up to date because I have a few more I need to include. But as part of my they gave me cake yesterday at 12 o'clock, I was supposed I planned to say a few words, and so part of that was just this. In my 5 years with Catholic Charities, I've requested $3,563,061 in funding through grant applications to support our mission to serve neighbors in crisis and need. And those grant requests, right? I just said this. They require abundant and tedious time from everyone in the anyone involved. Program staff, program directors, accounting is a godsend here. We have and everyone is such a team player. When you're talking about the skills that people have here, it's teamwork. Teamwork is the number one. But from that total that I've output, we've been awarded a total of $2,034,662, which is 57% of my output. So that's actually a really good return.
Is
now
huge.
a lot of that I did with John Marcantuno when I was a co-lead. That's not when I was actually the sole lead. And a lot of that's also renewals. So, the renewals are never the same thing as a first-time grant. So here's my humility. Please don't think more of me than it really is. But it's very exciting. I mean, that's very exciting for me that I, have accomplished that.
And
that's a huge accomplishment.
That's a great percentage and a great return on investment of time and talent and effort. Right. When you can bring in numbers like that over the course of 5 years, and that's a healthy organization, and that's the importance of grant writing. Folks, if you work for a nonprofit or if you're available to or you have grants available to you, I know it seems tedious and I know it seems onerous. Put the effort into it, because it really does make a huge difference in what you're able to provide in terms of services or projects. So if you're a local person and you've never considered it, or it's always been something that's made you nervous, I can tell you that a person with a liberal arts degree who never thought she was going to be anything more than an academic found a way to throw herself into it, and as you heard, was able to bring in millions of dollars over the course of 5 years. So it's always
and the ripple
worth the
effects
effort.
of that.
Yeah.
The lives touched, the families touched. I mean, that can't be quantified. I wish it could, but that number would be amazing
10
too.
times as much.
Yeah.
It really would. So it's important.
That money has gone to provide security deposits and rents for families that are literally homeless. That we've provided financial coaching and counseling for anyone, general population, mentorship for youth, food, a lot of food. a youth enrichment program for refugee youth, reentry activities for citizens that were reentering from Salem County Jail. And now the one that I was screaming about, we did get some funds to help provide security deposits and rents for people that are want to get into sober living, that have completed treatment for opioid use disorder and want to get into sober living houses but can't afford the to get in. And so it's just like really like crucial, like
life changing.
It is, because it just gets people through through a crisis situation, and to get through that, and then and that's really helpful. One day, by the grace of God, there goes me, and I would need it one day too.
That's because you never know when you're going to end up in a position like that. And it also begs another thing is we were talking about the importance of grant writing. Keep an eye on the grants that are being provided, because sometimes it'll be for a program that you don't have and you don't think you could possibly operate. However, you might be surprised at what's out there, and if there's a need in the community, I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that there's probably a grant set up somewhere that all you need to do is apply to, and probably a little luck as well and some skill, but make the effort to apply, because you just never know when that grant will come through.
You're increasing our competition, Mike.
Yeah, I was.
Don't anybody
my
look for
smile
grants.
slowly started fading.
I'm a capitalist.
No one's out there
I believe in
That's true.
survival of the fittest here. Because I know how good our staff is here, and I know how good our programs are, that I don't mind other companies. Plus, we don't provide everything to everybody.
That
Okay,
is true.
now,
Absolutely.
Mike.
No, that's true.
It's true.
And it's very exciting. And you're right. We need as many contributors in this space and partners as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Including people from Volunteers from America Delaware Valley.
On behalf of
Now-
Kevin, I'm going to smack the microphone away from you.
I hope one day one of the employees that listens to any of these podcasts and appreciates all the positive things I've said about them.
Oh my gosh. I wonder. Will they ever know?
We'll see. No. Well, we got like 4 minutes left of the show, and I'm just curious. In your time here, do you have any sort of like final words of wisdom?
Ooh, thank you. Just a big thank you. Really grateful. In my speech to my colleagues,
I was going to say, there's the paper there if you want to share that.
Just one part of it. No, it's like 2 pages, Mary. Well, I did a trivia game at my cake celebration.
That's awesome. I can't believe I missed this.
I wanted to say I especially appreciate everyone here, because they've seen me fail. They've seen me make mistakes. I've had to apologize again and again. I'm sorry this was late. I'm sorry I didn't return your call. And no one's ever flinches at saying it's okay, and offering support, continuing to offer support and encouragement and believing in me and everything. So it's just, that's a safe environment to grow in and to learn in, and I am so thankful for that. That I could be human and forgiven and still be a teammate. I'll give you a trivia question?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Okay, so one of my first grants that I wrote was an enrichment program for refugee youth, and our program director at the time was very into comic books, and we were going to do this thing where the youth would practice learning English by reading the comic books and then write their own stories. It was kind of an emotional thing. They would write their own stories as comic books, because a lot of superheroes are actually, they embody people on the margins or people who are excluded because of differences, right?
Yeah.
And who is the most notable superhero that is actually a refugee because he was forced to go to another planet from his home planet?
Superman.
I knew,
sorry.
Christina, you were speaking Mike's language as soon as you mentioned comics,
yes.
but I knew that one,
Yeah.
and you beat me to it.
Okay, I tell you what. You give us your real name.
No.
What? Your name's not Mary?
No. Superman's real name. You can use Superman's real name.
You said give us Mary's real name.
Sometimes I don't know that either.
Use Superman's.
Clark Kent.
No, that's not his real name.
It's not?
His real name is Kal-El.
What?
That's his.
Oh,
That's
I feel like
that's
from
like a-
Krypton.
See,
That's
we
his-
don't even know. See, some refugees might have to take on an
That's
American
right.
name.
See?
Proving
once again your point. See? Why are we letting this woman leave?
I don't
She's
know.
brilliant, and she uses comic book analogies. This is great, but that's actually.
But see how fun that grant program is. We designed that, and we wrote that. We got funding for that, and we didn't get as much as we asked, so we had to change it, so it wasn't exactly like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's so fun.
It is okay. When we started this podcast before we hit the record, Mary and I, for different reasons, are dead tired.
Yeah.
And people were coming in, and I didn't want them anywhere near me.
We both said, you're going to have to carry this one today.
And what happened? She was on for 54 and a half minutes, and this is the most energized and happiest I've been in hours. So, Christina, I am going to be and Mary is too, very sad that you're leaving. We're very happy for you.
If I open my mouth, I'm going to start getting choked. So you speak on behalf of both of us.
I just want you are always welcome at Catholic Charities and the Diocese of Camden. And me personally, as a communications director, if there's any way I can ever be of service to you, please do not hesitate to contact me, and we will be helpful to you in any way, shape, or form that we can. So thank you for all of your great service.
Good luck. You will be amazing.
Yeah. And to Mary, thank you for helping to put this together. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. And we'll be back again next week. See you, everybody.
Bye.